Thank you very much for the introduction. So hello, everyone. So today I will give you a brief introduction about what we have done so far related to this topic, today's topic, because it's more about lung cancer or also the air quality issue, climate change. And so my topic is mainly focused on climate change impacts on cancer rates in Canada. And I just want to mention this is like an ongoing research. We only have some preliminary results to share today, but I will mention that our, the approach that we are going to pursue in the next stage, and we certainly open to any question, suggestion, or advice. So cancer and climate change. I think over the past decade, people have slowly realized that the impacts of climate change. And we have been known, the acute impact of climate change on human health because, it can, you can quickly see some negative impacts. But when it comes to cancer, this kind of chronic disease, according to the recent review paper published in Lancet Oncology, and little is known or appreciated about the effect of climate change on chronic diseases, especially cancer, because, typically you need to be exposed to some environmental pollutants or climate change from a long time ago, so that this can somehow trigger the cancer. So it's not like an acute impact you can see immediately. So that's why there's still some challenges to understand the links between cancer and the climate change. So so when it comes to climate change and cancer, and typically we know that developing cancer is basically mainly caused by the environmental exposures to different factors. For example, UV radiation or air pollution, or even disruptions in our food and water supply system, and also environmental toxicants, infectious agents, and so on. So in the meanwhile, we know that while we're seeing the climate change or global warming, we may likely to increase our possibility towards the environmental exposures. For example, when we have global warming and we tend to have more wildfires, and wildfires can bring a lot of air pollution issue, and this will certainly increase the environmental exposure risks to the local people, like in West Canada. So certainly there are a lot of potential links, and in order to study the link between climate change and cancers, typically there are two ways. One way is we all know that you need to do some experiments, typically based on like mouse experiments, and and in this aspect, you mainly will focus on understanding the biological or ecological mechanisms about climate change. And especially how climate change causing cancers, like if you expose heat stress, how your body will react to that. And this is more about the mechanism side. Another approach is basically to use data analytics to understand the potential links or statistical links between climate change and cancer. And this is actually the focus of our research. Because our expertise is mainly in data analytics side or geospatial modeling side. So today we are going to share some of the preliminary results based on our current data collection for Atlantic Canada. So here on this slide, what you're seeing is basically the cancer trends in Atlantic Canada. And when we say cancer trends here in this page, basically we sum all the cancers together. And the unit here is the rate per 100,000 population. And we have, here we have New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland and Labrador. And we basically look at the total cancer rate each year between 1992 to 2018. And here you can see, we simply do a very simple linear regression. And when you look at the R-squared value, it is very high, mostly like 0.9. So that means this linear trend is very significant. And also, and basically these four, these four big pictures here, you can see, we all see the increasing trend. So that means the cancer rate in Atlantic Canada is certainly increasing. And particularly if you look at Newfoundland and Labrador and look at the slope of this trend, it's almost 17, but you compare this to other provinces, you will see it's about 9 or 8 or 7. So that means in Newfoundland and Labrador, the total cancer rate is almost doubled compared to other provinces. And this is the total cancer rate. And here, this is the cancer rate, cancer trend for lung cancer. And again, for provinces, and similarly for New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and the PEI, we're kind of like have a similar trend. But again, if you look at Newfoundland and Labrador, you will see the slope is pretty high. Again, it's almost doubled compared to other three provinces. And this is another cancer, skin cancer. And when it comes to skin cancer, you can see actually among these four provinces, we see PEI actually has a highest slope. That means we are seeing, you know, quicker increase towards the skin cancers among the four provinces in Atlantic Canada. So this is basically, we have a lot of data to show, but here today, I just want to pick up a few, you know, figures to help you share some of the trends towards cancers. And but this is certainly not our focus. We want to look at how climate change or you know, is affecting the cancer rates. We know that air pollution is certainly one of the big issue causing cancers. And here we look at the total air pollutants for Atlantic Canada, and surprisingly, you can see we all see, you know, for all four provinces here, this is a total air pollutants, not like individual pollutants. And you can see we for all four provinces, we see decreasing trend. And also the R squared value is also very high, like almost 0.9. So that means this decreasing linear trend is very significant. You know, and certainly we see in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, because the trend is decreasing trend is very high compared to PEI and Newfoundland and Labrador. And this is because, you know, the air pollutants is somehow related to the total population of the province. So anyway, here you can see we are seeing decreasing trend for air pollutants, but cancer rates are increasing. So that means like certainly we know air pollutants is a big issue, but maybe in Atlantic Canada, this is probably not the main factor. Even though here we don't consider the spatial, you know, distribution of air pollution. We know that in some area or some remote or local communities, they may be exposed to high air pollution, you know, high concentration of air pollutants. But generally speaking, if you look at the total, it's kind of like decreasing. So that's why we want to look at climate change. We certainly want to look at all the climate indices, like typically we look at temperature. We also want to look at, let's say, precipitation, humidity, and also solar radiation and others, because this can, you know, directly or indirectly affect our, you know, potential risks towards environmental exposures. So here in this slide, you are seeing the warming trends in Atlantic Canada. Basically, we pull out for each capital city in 4 provinces, we pull out the long-term monitoring data for mean temperature over the, you know, the past century. And here you can see we're kind of like seeing a very consistent increase in trend towards the mean temperature. Even though the R squared value is not that high, it's about 0.5 or even less, but this is because of the year by year variation. But generally speaking, you can see it's overall it's increasing for all 4 provinces. And so that means potentially because of the, you know, the global warming, we may have some, you know, somehow increase the risks of environmental exposures. We are not sure about which aspect, but certainly that's something that we are going to continue to look at in the next step. And we also want to incorporate other climate variables to see what are the potential links between increasing cancer rates and the changing climate conditions. So based on this kind of preliminary data analysis, we know that it's kind of like the warming climate is likely to, cause increasing cancer rate, but still there's a lot of, aspects to look at. One thing is that I think we are missing at this moment is to look at the spatial correlation, to look at where you see high increase towards cancer rate. And do you see also in this area, do you see, increasing temperature or flooding or maybe wildfires? And so that we can look at the spatial distribution or correlation among climate change and cancer rates. So that's something we haven't considered yet, but that's something we are going to continue to look at. And furthermore, if we can, we saw some preliminary conclusion towards the links between warming climate and increasing cancer rate. And next, certainly, we want to quantify how much increase, towards in the cancer rate can be attributed to the warming climate. And this is something that to help us quantify the indirect or direct effects of climate change, in order for us to to raise the awareness towards climate change. So anyways, this is just some preliminary results I want to share. And following that, I also want to share with you some of the ongoing or previous research we have done so far in the School of Climate Change at UPI. And nationally, internationally, we have been working on many projects focusing on high resolution climate modeling or flood modeling, energy system modeling, and also spatial temporal patterns of carbon emissions to understand how do we put efforts towards carbon reduction. And in Prince Edward Island, we have focused on these are mostly about the ongoing projects. We are working on 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer high resolution climate projections for PEI, and also seasonal climate prediction for PEI, flooding risk assessment, climate change impacts on different areas like potato yields, or some endangered species like piping plover in PEI, and also quantification of carbon sequestration potentials for PEI ecosystems. And so I will quickly go through some of the topics we have been working on over the past decade. One one key topic is basically the high resolution regional climate modeling. And this is to generate future climate scenarios under different emission scenarios, so that we know what would happen if we take some action to reduce greenhouse, or if we don't take any action. And because different areas may experience different changes, like in PEI, we're seeing coastal erosion, coastal flooding. But if you go to far north, you will probably see, reducing sea ice coverage or many other issues. So therefore, it's really important to understand the localized impacts. And this needs to start with, understanding future climate change under different scenarios. And over the past decade, we have been using a lot of climate model to develop regional climate data. And this moment, we are using the MPAS model, which is developed by the US National Center for Atmospheric Research. And we are using this model to develop 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer climate data for PEI. And hopefully once we have some results, once we test out the performance of this model, we are going to extend this to other provinces in Atlantic Canada. And we do have some, high performance computing clusters hosted with the ACNet CCU cluster in Memorial University. And this allows us to conduct, high resolution regional climate modeling. And we are kind of like, once we have some high resolution climate data, we are very happy to share results with the public. So previously we have developed several GIS and web-based climate data portal to share the high resolution data we have. And here you can see we have 4 data portals available at this moment, including Canada CCDP, China CCDP, Ontario CCDP, and the Prairie CCDP. And from this user-friendly data portal, you can download future climate scenarios, or you can look at the whole map to understand what's going on under different greenhouse gas emissions. And we have data for temperature, precipitation, solar radiation, humidity, and many others. And so far, these data portals have received over 800 registered users. They are basically download data every day to support their research or maybe some consulting work. And most of you, the users are from Ontario, because the Ontario CCDP is the first data portal we have developed. And what we are doing at this moment is actually to develop a data portal for Atlantic Canada. We have already developed the high resolution climate data for Atlantic Canada. So next step is to develop similar portal to distribute data to the general public, so that everyone can have free access to the climate scenarios under future emission scenarios. And another topic we have been working on is to look at urban flood prediction under heavy rainfall. And for some of you, if you don't have enough background, here just a quick introduction. And typically when we look at flooding, many people will look at rivers. And typically you will assume that all the rainfall coming will be first dumped into the river, and you raise up the water level and your surrounding area will be flooded. So this is called the floodplain area. And we know that you have higher risk of flooding if you build your house in floodplain area. But we also see many other situations, like if you have let's say if you have a swimming pool on the top of a mountain, if you use all these traditional model, after a heavy rainfall event, you will see your swimming pool top of the mountain will be still empty. But in reality, it's not. This is because all these traditional model, they only focus on those floodplain area. So what we do is that we propose a new model to address this issue, especially under heavy rainfall events. And we have applied this model to the city of Lafayette in Louisiana, because that is a very flat area similar to PEI. And we have run the model under different scenarios from, we can run the model at any resolution actually, but there's a balance between, model simulation time and also the head time you want to provide to, especially when it comes to emergency management. So we find a balance. Typically when you run model at 50 or 100 meters, you can generate reasonable results within a reasonable time frame. And the most important thing is about the reversed flow. I'm not sure if anyone has experienced this before, but when I was in Louisiana, there's a river passing through the city because it's so flat. So every time you see a heavy rainfall event, you will see the river flow will be reversed because the downstream will receive more water quickly than the upstream, so that the river flow will be reversed. And this is actually a big issue when it comes to coastal flooding or flooding in some low-lying area. So there's no model can address that. And actually our model can exactly simulate or address the reverse flow. And we're actually working on the PI flooding assessment by using our new model. And we also work on energy system modeling by using some economic model, climate change scenarios, and mathematical optimization models to look at different carbon reduction policies, like a carbon trade or cap or trade, carbon tax, or other, or maybe the combination. And towards carbon emission, we have worked with some researchers from China to look at how do we quantify the hotspots of carbon emission, because they really need to think about where to cut the emission. And so therefore it's important to locate those hotspots. And this is how do we do that? We look at industry, residential, transportation, agriculture sectors, and then we merge them together. We can easily identify those hotspots of high carbon emission. And that means if you want to reduce your carbon emission, these are the areas you really want to target. And we can also look at different periods by overlapping those maps to look at the spatial temporal trends to help you understand if your policy is working or not. And for PEI, we have been working on developing high resolution climate data like at 1 kilometer resolution. So this is a very, very high resolution. And the reason is because PEI is so small, but we also experience microclimate. And here by developing 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer high resolution climate data, you can see even for PEI, when it comes to precipitation, we can reveal east wet and west dry pattern. And this is particularly important for our potato farmers to look at where to select their fields for potato growing in the future. Because drought is a big issue for potato farmers. And finally, I have a few slides to share. And one is the PEI weather and climate app. And this is basically to help us understand or monitor the ongoing weather condition and climate condition for PEI. And we have installed over, from UPEI about over 60 or 80 stations, but we also have other individual or publicly available stations. So in total, in this app, we have over 100 real-time weather station. You can basically check the current weather condition, including temperature, precipitation, wind speed, humidity, solar radiation, and many others. And again, it is available at this website. It is open to everyone. You can look at the past week or past 30-day records for each station. We also have a zone camera to help you understand what's going on at this moment in PEI. And we also have historical climate data based on the Environment and Climate Change Canada 3 stations. And you can look at the historical data to compare them to the current status to understand what happened. And we have over 270 registered users. And for active users every day, I think we have over 1,000. Another app is, this is about PEI storm surge early warning system. You can look at the current water level. And here the number shows the difference between the top of water and the top of the wharf, so that you can see how close water is close to the top of wharf, and to understand if there's a storm surge or not. And also PEI climate diary app. This is based on field knowledge, climate field knowledge. For example, if you see a bird coming early in spring, that means the climate is getting warmer. So by introducing citizen science, and we can indirectly understand what's going on about climate change in PEI. Yeah, so finally, I want to bring you your attention to this conference we are going to host this summer at UPEI, and this is the People 2022. And this conference is focused on persistent, emerging, and organic pollution in the environment, and particularly we want to focus on climate change. So I encourage you all to attend if you have an opportunity. Yeah, I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you so much for the opportunity.